Many people, they are good in discipline in thoughts. They can write papers, beautiful presentation. But when it comes to execution, you fail. People still in their mindset, oh, supply chain is equal to logistics. Please, my dear friends, no. Supply chain is the entire function in the organization. It covers HR, it covers planning, it covers marketing, everything. My chairman told me, I give you a mandate. If you can do the transformation within 1 year, we'll go. Otherwise, let's just close this business. I use the Balanced Scorecard. You don't need to look at a laundry list of KPIs. You look at a 4 perspective, you work on it, you get it right. There are universities which have a revenue about 112 million per year. Profit after tax is 1.8 million. Versus MUST, in 2024, our revenue was 23 million and our profit after tax was 4.8 million. I don't play volume game, I play the margin game. My thoughts are, AI will also eventually come to like a bubble bursting. It'll burst like a bubble. If I made any mistakes in the strategies, I will openly tell them, hey look, the strategies that we implemented, it didn't work out well for us. We failed. I failed. You can craft a strategy, beautiful strategy, you can keep on talking about it. But if you don't have the right people, you will not get it done. It is the people that makes a difference for the organization.
I think most leaders know the theory of transformation, and that's something I'm very interested in, but they stumble on the execution. You've been one of those rare leaders who have mastered both the academic and also the practitioner part. And also you've been serving as one of the executive presidents of the International Supply Chain Education Alliance with academics from prominent universities. There's Cambridge University, to cite a big one in that alliance. And for that alliance, you've developed the Certified Sustainable Supply Chain Professional Program. It's been developed in 2021 by you, and it's been offered in 72 countries. So leading from Malaysia on supply chain and on sustainability, which is the new thing. So congrats. And you've also been the first Malaysian to earn a PhD in supply chain management. You didn't stay in the ivory tower. You've cut your teeth driving massive efficiencies at Intel and Seagate. And then as the president of Malaysia University of Science and Technology, you've orchestrated a total turnaround. And I'll just say that ultimately you've gone from financial losses when you took over and you broke even in 7 months. And then now you have profit. I think it was around 6 million last year, 24 million in revenue, but more importantly, 1,100 students that you serve above the targets that you had. And now you are taking that same relentless supply chain discipline to turn around another organization, which is MyChef. Interesting. I don't know if we'll get to talk about everything, but that would be super interesting. You went from the factory floors of Intel, there was also Seagate, 2 very prominent organizations, to now President's Office of Must. What led you to the intersection of academia and industry? Why are you here where you are now today?
It was actually a transition coming from the industry as a practitioner. When I was in Intel in 2002, I had the opportunity to work with the world-renowned professor for supply chain, Professor Howley. He talked about industry practice and also academic. I was very much curious to know what is the supply chain forte across industry, not just only on E&E, electrical electronic industry, but across other sectors. How does it work? Then he told me, why don't you start a PhD? So that's where the initiation started off as a PhD in 2002, and Intel gave me a scholarship to do the PhD. I was indeed given an opportunity to do my PhD in the US, but I chose to do it locally in Malaysia, because I feel that eventually I want to contribute back to my country. Upon completing my PhD, as an academician, they call it either you publish or you perish. So you need to publish, right? Research papers. But then, as far as Intel is concerned, you cannot publish. You need to go through a lot of processes to get it cleared, because they will keep on telling you it's confidential. So this is common for industry, So that's the main motivation where I moved from industry to academia world. In the academic world, you are free to publish. As long as you have followed the ethical processes in your data collection and your disclosure of information, fine, you can. So that made me to move from industry to academic world. So when I came into academic world, I saw the big gap. What we guys are doing in the industry and what we are teaching in the university, there's a gap. I felt like working in the industry is like a university. You learn many things. When you go to the academic world in the university, you are only structured and only you're confined to the curriculums and so on. You cannot go beyond that. You can't go beyond that. So there, I find that, hey, this is a gap and this has to be bridged. So I decided on that day that even though I choose to take up academic as my career path, but then I should always stay close to industry. So that's the motivation of my transition from industry to academic world. Yep.
Got it. If you were to summarize your professional life to one single question, what would it be?
I like to be the thought leader for supply chain because I find this discipline of supply chain is ever evolving. What we studied about supply chain in the 1990s with the bullwhip concept introduced by Professor Howley, yeah, and today it has transformed to many other folds, yeah. So I like to stay on with this as a thought leader for supply chain, and in order to stay active as a thought leader, you need to keep on enhancing your knowledge, meaning you need to get yourself into the industry because learning is from the industry, not from books, not from books. Learning is from industry. You learn from industry. Once you learn, then you document it and it becomes a book.
So the seed is always in practice, and then you're just trying to explain the practice to others. You're trying to hold tension between the industry and the academy. So the academy would be theoretical, the industry would be practical. How do you do it? Because at the moment you take it away from the industry, it becomes more abstract. So how do you make sure that rubber meets the road in the classroom?
Okay, there are several ways how you can do it. In the academic world, the quality framework of academic, they have one component where they call industry advisor. So you have to engage constantly with the, I would say, top-notch industry players. Don't get the mid-level people and so on. You get the CEOs of companies, those who are successful in bringing about transformation and so on. You tie them up as an as an industry advisor. So this is what I'm doing today. That's number one. The second one is I always encourage and also I put a little bit of pressure on my academic staff that they have to go back to the industry. I want them to be tied up with the industry. So this is where we are currently doing some research with Westport, on sustainability, measuring and monitoring the CO2, the carbon emission in the Westport, specifically for scope 3. So this is how I believe that you can keep going with your processes and as a thought leader and building the relationship between academic and industry.
So does it mean you need to be part-time when you are working at MUST? When you're contributing as a professor at MUST, do you need to have two positions, one at MUST and one in the industry?
Yes. You need to be there in the industry. And this is where I went into these international supply chain education alliances, the professional body. I know that the professional body is actually a group of people who are in the area of supply chain. I joined the body and then together with the industry players there, I try to understand what are their pain points today in the industry. And from there, I move on and I design the program which is called Certified Sustainable Supply Chain Professional Certification Program. So that kept me going with the industry very well.
And when you say the needs they have, it's the needs in talents or the kind of problems they're trying to solve that are not currently solved by their talents? That's the way you would put it?
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. The different industries has got different approach. When you go to the professional bodies, they consolidate the different approach coming from the industry, document it, put it together as a best practice. The sectors, you talk about the sectors, you talk about the industry. Different sectors, different industries have got different approaches. So as a professional body, you are able to put them together.
Got it. How do you navigate the AI rollout at the moment? Because now everything is much faster. So I understand even more the approach that you have to have people in the industry, because if you wait to have, maybe if you wait 1 or 2 years after the industry has implemented it to give it to the classroom, the fact that things are going so fast now, you'd be super late. And basically the students would be learning things that don't make any sense anymore. You talked about the process of having staff that is deep into the industry and deep into academics, so one leg in each world. Are there other things that you do to respond to the speed of change in the world, not just in industry?
Of course, today if you look at the AI, the speed that the AI is going is really, really as highly accelerated. And different industry has got different wave they're going, yeah, on the area of AI. So we as academician to put together all the different industry or different companies that they are practicing AI, it will be challenging for us, yeah. But however, looking at the top universities, like for example, Stanford University, example, yes, Stanford University, and how they bring AI, they're not just only looking at the AI from the application side of it, they're also looking at the AI from other perspective. Like for example, they're even looking at the infrastructure that you need to have, yeah, the modules that you need to create for the AI, yeah, and then the people side of it. And that's where I think that is important for us to learn from top universities, their approach towards AI. From there, we can bring it down to the second or third tier universities, yeah, and to bridge, yeah, the gap between the industry and the academia in terms of AI. My thoughts are AI will also eventually come to like a bubble bursting. It'll burst like a bubble. Yeah. And you see that a lot every day you see new applications are coming up, new LLM are coming up with cutting edge, giving a lot of convenience to consumers and so on. So but then we to package this, put it all together and take it out to students, it's very, very challenging. So the best easy way is to learn benchmark best practices from other top universities. So this is where for Mas University, October last year, November 2025, we have tied up an MOU with Stanford University on AI Safety, Center for AI Safety, Stanford. That gives us the leverage to leverage on their expertise here.
Got it. And I think that another core of your career is the transformation. When you come to an organization that is struggling, what are the convictions that you have? So what are you certain about? So the principles or the ideas that are driving your action. And what are the things that you still doubt about despite all your years of experience? What are the things where you still not clueless, but you admit that you don't know?
You know, many years ago, before coming to this university, I read this book by Jim Collins, Good to Great. Among the several concepts that he introduced, I like the one concept that is discipline. I love that. And he has taken that discipline into three perspectives. Discipline in your people, discipline in your thoughts, and discipline in your action. So when I took up the transformation of this university, Malaysian University of Science and Technology, I looked at the people. I studied the people. Yeah. Whom I need, whom I don't need. Of course, this is business, right? I cannot use sentiments. Yeah. So I looked at it, the people who are disciplined enough to support me in the transformation. So then I have to, some of them we have to lay off. And we need to inject new people into it, yeah, into the organization. So that was one of my main challenges that I took up this university 2016, yeah, first quarter. The university had a loss of 22 million over the 6 years. And the student number was 347, I still remember. So I sat down with the chairman and I had a discussion with him. And my chairman told me, I give you a mandate. If you can do the transformation, just at least break even within 1 year, we'll go. Otherwise, let's just close this business. Yeah. So that was the mandate given to me. Yeah. But it was good that I had the idea of Jim Collins' way approach. Yeah. It's the people, disciplined people. Yeah. Within 4 months, I got it right. The people. Meaning to say, I took off almost about 40% of the people. I have to just terminate them. And then I injected a few people who can support me as a team player. That was the first thing, people. Then the second one is discipline in thoughts. So I brought in my thoughts, my fundamental thoughts about supply chain. Supply chain is managing processes and activities, yeah, in the downstream and in the upstream and the focal organization. So the focal organization was MAS. And in the downstream, I had, and in the upstream. So in the downstream is the employers, and in the upstream were the high schools. So how do I convince parents and high school students to take up the educational program in MUST? That was my discipline in thought. I came up with programs, I came out with attractive initiatives. Yeah. And then in the downstream was the industry. What actually the industry looking for? So this is where I tied up with industry players. I tied up with them, asked them what actually you're looking for a graduate. This connecting, putting my supply chain thoughts together and Jim Collins' thought together really helped me in the second phase, that is discipline in thoughts. Thoughts, you put it, you write it up, yeah, you prepare papers for board and all. And the last discipline is discipline in action, execution. Many people, they are good in discipline in thoughts. They can write papers, beautiful presentation. But when it comes to execution, you fail. Why? Because you don't plan it well, you'll fail. So that was what I was thinking. And what I did was, I went into the execution, I looked into the resources, and I got the right people to look at it, and I used Balanced Scorecard for my execution. That is Robert Kaplan and David Norton's teaching. And I attended in 2012 in Harvard Business School and personally was trained by Robert Kaplan and David Norton on the Balanced Scorecard. So I used the Balanced Scorecard. A very simple theory, Matthew, very simple theory. You don't need to look at a laundry list of KPIs. You look at the 4 perspective, you work on it, you get it right. The first one is the people. What are the skill gaps you have in the people? Get it right. And the second one, when you get the people right, the people will look into the processes and activities that you have today, the initiatives that you have today. They will revisit, and if they need to revise, they revise it, only if they have the skill sets. Then when you get the processes right, you'll be able to satisfy your customers, my students. Responsiveness will increase, yeah? Agility will be built in the process. Then my students will be happy. When I say my students are happy, employability is the answer. Nothing else. End of the day, the promise is employability. So once they get it right, then automatically by default, my financials get right. So the 4 perspective of Robert Kaplan and Norton, yeah, that is the people, the processes, your customers, my students, and finally the finance. The 4 perspective.
So it's organizational capacity perspective. So that's your people. Then internal process perspective. That's your process. Okay.
And then the customers,
and
my
then the
students,
finance. Yeah.
and finally the the reactive side of it. It's not proactive. The reactive side is the financial figures.
Yeah.
So you have to balance between the proactive and reactive. Yeah. So the proactive is you invest in your people, get the right people, right the skill sets and so on. So that is proactive. Once you get this done proactively, finally you will see the outcome, the financial. Yeah. You don't go and just focus on financial first. You get this right, then that will come automatically for you. Yeah.
Does the Balanced Scorecard go to each employee? Do they see when they do their OKRs? Do they see also the Balanced Scorecard, or they just see their OKRs?
All my schools, the deans have been given the Balanced Scorecard. Normally, I'll share with them in December towards the end of the year for the upcoming year. I'll put the scorecard for them. Yeah. Of course, the scorecard will be to be established in uncommon understanding between the 2 persons, the dean and me. And then the dean will take it down and cascade it to the faculty members and the administrators. Yeah. I don't look at laundry list of KPIs to be measured. Very straightforward. With these 4 perspectives, each of these perspectives will have 4 KPIs. So 4 times 4, 16. That's it. Done. Finish. Very simple.
16 at your level. And then each person has their own OKRs to feed the 16.
Yeah. So they will cascade, they bring it up from the ground level. You can see, like, for example, marketing team, yeah. Then comes to the administrator, registrar office, yeah. Then come to the school level where they deliver the services, yeah. Then come to the finance side of it. So it will just go up, yeah.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Super useful. Did you have any pivotal moments in the way you think about things today? So the Balanced Scorecard came to you through this course. Did you change your way of thinking from before, or you just explicited and formalized something that you already had before the Balanced Scorecard? In other words, did you change the way you think about performance and these aspects from that Balanced Scorecard moment? Were there other moments in your life where you changed your mind? Basically, I'm trying to find out how you built your own sauce.
Okay. When I was in Intel, I served Intel 12 years. Yeah? 12 years working in Intel.
They had OKRs at Intel already when you were there.
Yeah. So Balanced Scorecard was already in Intel. They already applied Balanced Scorecard in Intel. Yeah. But then Intel, being a big multi-level corporation, they have so many areas to look at. Yeah. The fundamental concepts are already there with me. The thought of Balanced Scorecard. So when I resigned from Intel, I came to academic world. During that time, I really got the full understanding about Balanced Scorecard. And with that understanding, when I came back, then I saw where I need to improve. Earlier, I was so much into the processes. When I was working in Intel, it was so much about the processes and activity. You need to go around that. But when I attended the scorecard training, and then I went into the university side, then I saw the gap that I need to approach the scorecard from the people side of it. It is the people that makes a difference for the organization. It's not your beautiful strategies. No. You can craft a strategy, beautiful strategy. You can keep on talking about it. But if you don't have the right people, you will not get it done. So scorecard talks about people. Even Jim Collins talks about the people. In the discipline, he talks about the people. It's all about the people, the human capital. They are the one who will make a difference here.
So when you were at Intel and Seagate, your role was also process. So you had to focus on that part of the Balanced Scorecard. What you said is you took a step back. You also learned from the authors the key principles, which is basically that layering from the people. And then you could apply it. What kind of advice can you give for anyone who's at the bottom of organizations? Because at the end of the day, once you're at the bottom, you need to specialize. So the HR tend to specialize in the people side, maybe some of the HR processes, maybe not so much the financial. We tend to forget. We also forget the end client. If I'm in marketing, I might also forget about some of the aspects. How do you keep this awareness, despite the fact that we need to specialize at the bottom? But how do you keep this CEO mindset or the organizational mindset or the four perspectives? How to do it? Because it's very hard. How do you do it at Must, for instance?
Okay, I think fundamentally, whether you are in the HR department or you are in the registrar's department or you are in the finance department or you are in the marketing department, what is important is the analytical thinking. And I always emphasize this when I take talks with my bachelor student. I'll tell them, irrespective of whatever program that you do, whether bachelor's in business, bachelor's in IT, bachelor's in logistics, bachelor's in supply chain, doesn't matter. What actually you are learning? You're actually training your mind to explore, to be analytics in your thought. When you look at data, you should be able to analyze the data, not just take it as a raw, that's it. It doesn't work. So that is the analytical skill which I believe is the most important one. Whether you are in the mid-level management or even the executive level or whatever level you're looking at, the fundamental is analytical. And the second one is the problem-solving skills. I used to tell this, Matthew, when I was working in Intel, when I was a senior manager, when my staff come to me, the planners and the execs and all, they come to me and say, boss, I've got a problem. I don't know how to solve it. It's just so much an issue, this and that. You know what I'll tell them? I hired you for this solving problem. I hired you for solving problem. You don't come and tell me that there's a problem. And that's the reason why I hired you. If you cannot solve the problem, sorry, that is the door for you. We can exit. Basically, it's all about analytical skill set, the thinking, and second is problem solving. And the last one would be communication. Basically, it's about communication. Yeah. So this is where HR comes in very strong. You must be able to communicate. If you look at a typical engineer, Matthew, his biggest challenge is communication. I've noticed this. Principal engineers, they'll pass by you at the corridor, walking right in front of you. They can't even put up a smile to you. A simple thing like that is typical engineer. So communication skills are very important. Yeah. So these three skill sets, I don't know. I look at a lot of research works, publications on what is the next thing that they need to know. For me, these are the three things which are very important.
How do you keep the awareness of the big picture? Because you could have those three skills and still look at your little process, improve the little process, but do it in a way that doesn't serve the business because you're looking at it in a silo. So how do you do so that everyone has an awareness of the bigger goals we're trying to do, the client needs, for instance, or the financial goals that you have? How do you make sure that the entire organization can follow that? So that when you transform MUST, when you transform MyChef, so that everyone wants to follow you for the good reasons and also implement in their own scope what you have the big vision for. Otherwise, you might get them to be very good at their silo, but that doesn't optimize the bigger whole.
For this, Mehdi, I would like to quote what Peter Drucker, the guru of management, said. If you cannot measure, you cannot manage. So whatever you say, the people at the forefront or the first layer in the organization, you need to set clear direction for them. Once they know the direction very clearly, and this is how their output is going to be measured, then they will perform. Now, the challenge is, how do you connect these pieces to the higher level? I think for that, you also need to have common goals. While you have the departmental goals or individual goals connecting to departmental goals, you also need to have a common goal. When you have common goal, all the other departments will work towards achieving this common. This is something that I realize. For example, in the university, if I talk about a common goal for the university, that will be student recruitment or student enrollment, 10% growth, year-to-year growth. That is a common goal. Whether you are in marketing, whether you are in finance, whether you are in operations, you will have to work on it towards that direction. Example, the school. How do they achieve the 10% growth? Yes, they have to contribute towards addressing the attrition rate. If they are not able to address the attrition rate, you will not achieve the enrollment 10%. So you need to have common goals. So this is where if you have well-established and acceptable common goals, the whole organization will become harmonized. For me, this is the concept in supply chain. When you have your upstream and downstream, you need to have common goals to harmonize the entire supply chain. So I use that theory, Matthew, actually in the university, establishing common goals. Yeah.
Common goals with the high schools you were talking about and common goal with the employers as well? Or
Yes, common goals, yeah. Where everyone will have a role to play towards achieving the goal.
Did you get your partners, like the industry leaders, to share some goals with you as well? Or for now, it's only within MUST?
I don't get the industry partners or to come into the university to set the goals. No. Their industry partners, their role is only to provide input and feedback on the curriculum. They only help me in the curriculum. That is, they get me the current or relevant curriculum to be taken up by the students. Yeah. That's where the industry practitioners comes in here. But whereas the goals and all, it is all, the goal setting is done by the school itself, the university itself. Yeah. So we have the executive committee who decides on that. Yeah.
Did you change any of your management practices from the moment you learned a lot from Intel? You theorized it further with Kaplan and his colleague with the Balanced Scorecard. Then you took over the university, and it's been a while, right? It's been more than a decade.
More than a decade, yeah.
Yeah. Anything that you've learned over this time at MUST that you didn't have from Intel? Things that are new to you through this experience?
Of course, the sectors are two different sectors. One is the manufacturing, the other one is the service sector. Entirely different. In manufacturing, I was a bit like a hardcore guy. Everything is driven by numbers. But in the service sector, it is the people that makes you successful. In the manufacturing sector, it's the product that make the organization successful. If you have cutting edge product, you have new product development, that will make you successful. Whereas in the academic world, in this sector, education, it is the people. When I say the people means it is the faculty member, absolutely, they will make a big difference for you.
Right.
So here, for academic faculty members, it's all about, sometimes we have to use the cane and sometimes you need to use the carrot. It's a balance between using the cane and the carrot. So how do you get them to motivate them to accept what you're trying to say? Because academicians, they have their own ego, Matty, especially those who are like well-known people in their own respective discipline. But then to get them to buy into your idea, so it is about managing the people, yeah? Because you're working with people who are very high-level people in their thoughts, who have published many papers and so on, very good, recognized worldwide and so on. So this is something that I see difference between the manufacturing sector as well as the educational service sector. It is the people, you cannot be very hard to them, yeah? You must know when to use the cane, you must know when to use the carrot.
Thank you. Now that you're taking over or helping my chef, anything that you're trying to influence, it's a different industry as well, so you're taking something different. Anything that you feel strongly about that you want to bring to that new organization, and maybe things that are from what you've done at MUST, sorry, that would be interesting.
Okay, my chef was running at loss for the last 8 years from the day of inception. I volunteered as a former industry player. I volunteered to step in to visit back the processes, visit back the business, yeah, and for my chef. So the first thing I did was, I know that this is manufacturing, production. So the first thing I did was looking at the cost. Looked at the competitor's selling price. We were not very far from the competitor in terms of selling price. But then what was actually the biggest challenge for us in terms of profitability? Then the other question is cost. So I went into very detail about the cost. When I studied the cost, then I realized, Matty, that the cost and the margin set was not really right. There were some B2B businesses where the price was even lesser than the cost price. So by default, you're asking for a loss. The formula is B2C, you look for a 50% margin. B2B, you may want to look at 30% margin. So this is where, when I study the cost, I realized that something is seriously not right. So this is my second month. I'm entering to the third month, and I've made some proposal to the board of outsourcing the manufacturing, because the factory is not even a small scale factory, it's a micro scale factory. As a micro scale factory, you don't have economics of scale to bring your costs down. Yeah. So the only way is outsource it to a larger player, big player, and he will be able to bring your cost down, cost of production down. When you bring your cost down, automatically you will enjoy a better margin. Then you can see the profitability. So that's the direction that I've set. So far it's going on well. I think in another 2 months' time, I'll settle off for this business. Yeah. Meaning to say, I'll be able to put the business into the right track. I took this mission for 5 months.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you managed to do the same at MUST. So I think I had one question because of MUST and actually what you're telling me now with my chef. What is what you should do when you're bleeding cash in the first 30 days? You just answered it now. Just look at the cost. Is it the same thing you did at MUST as well? You spoke about people, right? So people is cost. What are the different things you need to do in your first 30 days taking over a crisis?
You are very right, Matty. Many CEOs, they will look at the bottom line, that is profitability. They look at profitability, they will analyze why they didn't get the profit. For me, cost is very important. If you're able to break down the cost, revisit back your cost structure, and if you get that right, by default, you will get your profitability. Of course, the other aspect is marketing and selling and all. That's secondary, yeah? But you must fundamentally get your cost right. The same thing that I apply even in MUST University. I visited back the cost. I look at the faculty cost, very high faculty costs. So what is the requirement for the teaching and learning? I need good faculty, fine. The good faculty comes with high price, right? So what I did was, can I enjoy the presence of good faculty, reputable faculty members with a lower cost? Yes, the formula is fractional engagement. Fractional engagement.
Which helps you with the industry and it goes well with the industry plan that you have.
Yes. So instead of hiring a faculty member for 5 working days, I hire them for 2 days or 3 days. So if I'm going to pay someone 30,000 ringgit per month, if I hire them for 3 days, maybe end up I'll be only paying them about 20,000 instead of 30,000. There you go. I'll be able to cut the cost. So I have almost about 20% of the faculty members with fractional. That is looking at the cost, yeah? And again, I always like to connect the theories to practice. That's my style. Eh? I connect back the university to the theory of Michael E. Porter on value chain. If you look at Michael E. Porter value chain, he talked about the 2 activities, main activities in organization, the primary activities and the support activities. The value chain model is really good. You can apply that in organization. So I visited back the value chain of the university. What is the primary activity? The primary activity is the faculty member, teaching and learning. Yeah. What are the secondary activity or the support activities that I have in the university? The IT, the finance, the purchasing, the marketing. These are all the secondary activity or the support activity. When I need to cut down the headcount, where do I cut down? I shouldn't cut down the headcount in the primary activity. I should cut the headcount in the
support,
secondary or the support activity. Again, I applied the theory. So when I reduce the headcount, I looked at the secondary or the support activity. And maybe sometimes I cannot cut the headcount. So what I did, I outsourced some of the activities instead of doing it in-house. When I outsource the activity, I can always demand for the best. So again, I applied the theory of value chain in making the transformation, into the processes. Yeah.
Is it easier to transform an organization that is bleeding, so in crisis? Because at the end of the day, people understand the need for change, I imagine. Or do you think it's also easy to do it at Intel when things are going well? Do you prefer working in crisis in order to make change faster?
Okay, crisis is inevitable. Whatever sector you are, whatever industry you are, you will always face a crisis. Yeah, even geopolitical things, issues that's happening. Yeah, geopolitical war that's happening. You like or don't like, indirectly in a business you're also impacted, and you have to manage it. Inevitable. So as a CEO, I think you should always be taking crisis, managing crisis in a very positive way. You cannot be shying away and you cannot say, I'm in a complacent state. No business is in a complacent state. So for me, now, if crises are there, I'll take it up as a challenge. I'll work towards that direction. Every problem, there's always a solution. It's how creative you are in thinking about getting or addressing those problems. You cannot solve a problem 100%, but you can mitigate them. You can mitigate them. That's good enough. 100% solving is impossible, yeah? But if you can soften it, that's fine.
I'm going to follow you with the soft end. So you spoke about your days at Intel and basically an industry where it was more hardware and more about the product. And then you moved to more about the people at university. And you talked about being hardcore. So more numbers, maybe less about feelings. My question would be, how do you balance the toughness of the number and the need for change? And there's no other way, because otherwise we're going to close the university, probably the same with my chef. So that's scary and anxiety, and so for some people it might be panic if you depend on the job. How do you balance that hard truth with having to take care of people's feelings so that they don't get despair or sadness or negative feelings that in the end will prevent them from responding positively to the challenge? How do you balance the two?
Your question is about resistance to change.
Yes.
When you want to bring about change, right? People always resist. This is common among people. For me, the way I manage this is, if you're able to set very clear direction, you tell them what is ahead, next 6 months, what is ahead, I think the people will support you. For example, stepping into my chair. Of course, we have to take out some people, yeah. But at the same time, I keep the core. So I share with them what is ahead, what's my direction, what am I trying to achieve. And I show them the low-hanging fruits that I'm able to achieve. When they see the small little achievements, they'll have the trust on you and they'll go with you. I've got, even in the university, I've got people who are working with me for more than 10 years. Why? Because they trust me. And the other thing that I do, Matty, is you need to, as a CEO, you need to come down and talk to your people. You don't sit in your room and then you set direction, you tell them to do. I don't think so that will work. You need to be hands-on guy. You need to come down and talk to your people. So what I do in the university is, I call it as University Leadership Camp. This is something that I created by myself. Every 6 months, I take my whole bunch of people, everyone, including the clerk level, clerical level, the deans, I take them out for 2 days and I motivate them. I share with them my vision for the next 6 months, what I'm planning to do and what we want to achieve and how do we measure the success. I'll talk to them in a very open way. And I allow them to also give me feedback. And I will tell them, if you disagree with my ideas, please feel free to share with me.
How many years have you been doing those every 6 months retreats?
Wow. Every year I've been doing two cycles. So can you imagine how many times we have done that? Maybe more than 15 times, yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Constantly I'm doing this. I think this is important, but this is my own. And the agenda, I looked at the agenda and I allow people to share their thoughts. It's not a one-way communication. It will be a two-way communication. I want them to speak also.
The Balanced Scorecard, you brought it to MUST the moment you came in, or it took a few years before you introduced it into the university?
The Balanced Scorecard has gone through a couple of revisions, yeah. So when I came into the university itself, that time itself, I introduced the Balanced Scorecard. But then today it has gone through a lot of revisions, yeah. I've enhanced here because the business environment is very dynamic, Lameti, very dynamic, keep on changing, right? So I have revised the Balanced Scorecard many rounds. But the fundamentals, the 4 perspectives are still there. The people, process, students, and then finish. That is there. It is just that the initiative to support each of it has changed.
Just to go for like skill building in the context of AI, you've designed this CSSCP program, which is the Sustainability in Supply Chain. How is this still worth doing, like this kind of program, and also university as a whole, when now you can basically go and ask Claude, as you're doing something, what solution you should be using, and it can be about anything. So where is the university and those academic programs still useful for the community, and where is it better to use AI?
Okay. The CSSCP program is something that, I started off in 2000 and 2021. 2020, I was working from home and then I was thinking as a thought leader, what should I do in the domain of supply chain? And I saw many businesses are collapsing and so on, falling, yeah. Merger also happening, yeah. So then the question of sustainability came in. How do business sustain in this era of challenges that they are looking at? So this is where I talked about sustainability. And during that time, it was not so much about AI. But digitalization was there. And digitalization was an enabler in the sustainable supply chain. So then later, after introducing the program, and the program was accepted by ISCEA, the Sustainable Supply Chain Professional Certification Program, which is currently offered in Cambridge University too, as an accredited by ISCEA. Then last year, I sat down, revisited back my modules, and I realized that there are a lot of things that have changed, especially with the pressure on SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, which was introduced in 2015 by United Nations on the 17 goals, where many countries are not able to achieve those goals. Almost zero, Finland, Denmark, they are okay, Sweden, they are okay. The rest of the countries are not. So this is where I look at it and connect it to supply chain, and I realize that it has got to do with supply chain. And then AI as an enabler to make things happen. How can it enable businesses to become sustained? So then I revised back the module and I call it CSSCP 2.0, which is now deployed already by IICA 2 months ago. They started offering. So again, coming back to the subject of AI, I connect the AI in terms of not just the application side of it. I looked at it from the architecture side of it. Where are the areas where AI can be applied? For example, if you're talking about sustainable supply chain in the context of carbon emission, and you are addressing climate change, how can AI help? AI can help in terms of monitoring the scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 of carbon emission by having blockchains to monitor and age analytics to help. So this is how AI can help. And this is what we have already introduced in the Westport today.
So just for people who don't know, scope 1 is direct emissions from owned or controlled sources. Scope 2 is indirect emission from the generation of purchased energy. And scope 3 is all indirect emissions from the value chain, including upstream and downstream.
Yeah, scope 3 is coming from your upstream and downstream. Whatever your supplier contributes to the carbon, that is your scope 3, because you are the reporting company. You are the reporting organization. When you report it out, you have to report what your suppliers are emitting. At the same time, you're downstream, your distributor, wholesaler, and retailers. Whatever they emit, you also have to report as a reporting company.
Got it.
So that is scope 3. You're right, perfectly. Scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So this is where, if you have the manual workaround, it's going to be difficult for you. But if you have AI, perfect. Very well done. I'm just talking about just only one area, but there are many areas, to it. Many areas to it. Like for example, if you're looking at SDG number 9, which talks about innovation, industry, and infrastructure. And in the university, SDG number 9 is very important. That is sustainable supply chain. You need to bring innovation in your pedagogy, the way you deliver your class. You cannot be using the same PowerPoint which you used 10 years ago. You need to tweak it, And now today with the AI, this is another challenge. I just wanted to share my thoughts. Academic, even NUS, Singapore University, Harvard University, and all having challenges with the AI. Students are writing assignments using AI, ChatGPT and all, right? What is the challenge? It's okay. Encourage your students to use AI. No problem. Because that is part of exploration. But then, when it comes to assessment component in the university, it's very simple to assess whether this is the student's work or not. All you need to do is, student, you can submit the assignment, but before you submit the assignment, please make a 10 minutes presentation of your assignment. That's it. You're done. You'll be able to say whether that is the student's work or ChatGPT's work. For me, AI is very important in university, especially when it comes to teaching and learning. Again, I relate it back to the supply chain concept, So looking at it from the people perspective. So this is how you need to work along. You cannot just avoid it.
You talked about at least two concepts that I knew before meeting you, but I've not used them. And I'm actually surprised to hear them again, and I rediscover them through the conversation. How do you explain that most of the things we already know, most of the things have been written in one way or another, and still we don't use them in our day-to-day, we don't implement them, and some of the things are destroying organizations? The simple fact of pricing higher than your cost is just basic, right? Why do you think people are not doing it? Why are we still not doing what we know we should be doing?
Well, CEOs are CEOs, They are well equipped with their skill sets and knowledge to be taking up the position as CEOs, But when they are stereotyped, that's where the challenge comes in. For example, If you look at the history of Intel itself, Intel, the CEO, all the while were engineers. Craig Barrett, Gordon Moore and all, yeah? But then in early 2000, the CEO was no more engineering background. This guy was actually a marketing background. When this guy came in as a marketing background, the way he thinks is different for Intel. For him was branding. The earlier CEO, they were talking about product. They were talking about product performance because they are engineering background. Paul Otoloni, who was the marketing background, he was more interested in the branding. So you find that CEOs with their background, they will be stereotyping. So this is where a good CEO will have to balance between his own discipline, his background, versus the company's interest. He has to look at the bigger picture, the mission, what he's going to drive. Yeah? He has to strike a balance between his discipline and what the business needs, and also you need to understand the landscape of the business. I gave you two examples, right? The engineering background CEO, Gordon Moore and Craig Barrett, versus Paul Otoloni was a marketing guy. There are a lot of things I can share, but some of it are confidential, I don't want to put up. But you can clearly see the directions are different. Paul Otoloni, when he came in, he even changed the logo from Intel Inside to Quantum Leap. And then later part, change it back to Intel Inside.
People know stuff, but they don't do them. What you say is it's just that we know things that are limited. And so we tend to implement the things that are limited. So it's the stereotype of what you come from and you keep recreating the thing. So it's a lack of completeness of understanding. That's what you are talking about?
Normally when someone takes up the position of CEO, he or she believes that he is ready to take up the job as a CEO. Meaning to say he already have a comprehensive idea about what a business, how a business is supposed to be run, supposed to be managed. Yeah? But then he goes back, he falls back to his core discipline and he thinks that's the way he should put focus. Yeah. But I think as a CEO, he need to think holistically, comprehensively, looking at the entire picture. Even if you are an engineer, you still need to think about human capital. You cannot neglect the human capital side of it. It is not that they choose to, but I think sometimes they follow the emotion. They follow the emotion and goes through that way, direction. Yeah. And last, I would like to also emphasize, Matthew, is there are a lot of theories in academic world that you see. Appreciation of the theory is important for me. You don't look at the theory from the book value of it. Quoted to you, the value chain, right? If you just look at it as a theory from the book value,
you don't implement.
It's just a waste for you. But if you look at it from the real business perspective and you apply it, you will appreciate. You will appreciate what Michael E. Porter said. Similarly, the Robert Kaplan, David Norton, the Balanced Scorecard. Don't look at it from the theory perspective. No, take it up. Look at it from the business perspective. When you apply it, then you will appreciate. So for me, appreciation of the theory is more important.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, so specifically in universities, you've been at MUST, and I mean, there are many universities in Malaysia. I know others who are struggling, so I think that's an interesting question. Why or where do you think that the knowing-doing gap manifests itself in the university context? Why do you think universities are not so successful? And I'm talking about MUST. When you took it over, there are other universities that are not going well. Do you think there's a pattern across the different universities, or do you think each is a different story and there's not much to learn there?
For this, we need to understand the landscape of higher education in Malaysia. The higher education in Malaysia is highly regulated. One is by the MQA, the qualification agency. The second one is the Ministry of Higher Education. So this is a regulated industry. The second thing is the number of players. You have 46 private universities, 11 international branch campuses, Curtin, Swinburne, Monash, Newcastle and all.
Nottingham,
not to forget. And then you have another 5 to 6 university colleges and 300 colleges. So it's a crowded place. It's a crowded marketplace. So in order to survive, if you keep going on costs or if you keep focusing on pricing, I think that's a wrong strategy. What I see is when a university offers a program at X price, the competitor like to go X minus 1. That means price cutting. So price cutting is not the right strategy for university because you will come to a point where you're going to hit your costs. I give you another example. I don't want to quote any university name. There are universities which have a revenue about 112 million per year in 2024. This is publicly available. When you look at the profit after tax, it's about 1.8 million. 112 million of revenue. Profit after tax is 1.8 million. versus MUST in 2024, our revenue was 23 million and our profit after tax was 4.8 million. Which is better, Matthew? You tell me.
I don't know. I don't know.
This is better. 4.8 million. The margin is so good. So, what made the difference? It's not the student number that made the difference. It is the program that you have or the flagship program that you have which made a big difference, where you will be able to put the pricing of the program not as a premium, not as a value, a midpoint. I would say MUST is in the second tier. We are not the tier 1 or we are not the tier 3, but we are in the tier 2, midpoint. I'm not offering a premium product that I can price it high. I'm not offering a value-based product that I'm pricing it very low. I go midpoint. So this is how I think will make a difference for university. So today we have got about 4,400 students. That's good enough. My maximum I want to go is 5,000. That's it. But I want to have a good margin. And secondly, I don't want to have too many tie-up with me in terms of asset. I don't want to hold too many assets, and then end of the day, if I don't utilize the asset, it's again another loss for me. Myself, I go very lean. If I need, I rent and I take the space. If I don't need, I let go. That's it. I'm not tied to any capital. So I think that should be the way. And for MUST, we have got zero liabilities, Matty. Zero liabilities. And again, we purchased 2 units the last 2 years ago. So it's a capital injection. This is from my experience of managing the university. If you want to play the volume game, you can play the volume game, but then your margin will hit. Yeah. Or like what I have taken, I don't play volume game. Yeah. I look at the flagship program and I keep on polishing my program. So I play the margin game. I don't play volume game.
Got it. Thank you for that. Do you think the one that you talked about, 100 million, 1 million, are they top tier? Are they third tier? What
I
are
would
they?
say second tier. Middle,
So they are
middle.
they are the same position.
They are my competitors. Yeah.
Interesting. One thing from before, so Balanced Scorecard, let's say that we realize, oh, good, Balanced Scorecard, the value chain, all these things, oh, I'm going to implement it. Were people at MUST doubting those frameworks? How do you make sure that they actually adopt them in a proper way? So how do you do change management to introduce those thoughts to the point that they become acted? Did people take them from the beginning, or did it take months or years for them to actually adopt and use? How has it been?
Okay, for the Balanced Scorecard, the tool, I call it, it's a tool, yeah. And any tool, you always need to adapt it to your industry. You cannot adopt a tool. Adopt means 100% you take, you apply. It doesn't work the way. You need to adapt it, meaning you take the tool, you make some revision to the tool, make some changes to the tool to make it align to what your industry is or your organization is. So this is what I did. I took the concept of Balanced Scorecard and then I adapt it to MUST. So it is not just a matter of looking at the 4 perspective, but it's also aligning the tool to the life cycle of the university. Where is the life cycle of this university today? Are we at the introduction stage, growth stage, or mature stage?
Mature.
Based on that life cycle, that's where we apply the tool. We align the tool towards that. If your organization is in the growth stage, the application of the tools will be slightly different because your focus is just keep on growing the numbers. You may want to even look at a lower margin. That's fine. But if you're in the matured stage, no, it's a different ballgame. Your focus should be on new product development, enhancing, and margin. Again, the tools are there. You have to align the tools to your current status of the university. And the key to success is getting your people to buy into your ideas. You need to get that going, yeah? If the people don't buy into your ideas, it will not happen. Because the success of an organization is not just the CEO, it is the people in the organization.
How do you do it?
There's a lot of formulas. You have open days. Every quarter, I have a session. I call Meet the People session. I call them people, yeah? Meet the people. Now, this one I learned from is a copy exec from Intel. Every quarter they come up, the CEO will be talking to the people, yeah? So every quarter I come up and talk to my people and give them an update where the university is today, number 1. I talk to them about the landscape, how is the industry, what are the challenges that industry see, what are the new regulations that has happened, and how are we going to navigate, and what is our direction. So these are the things that I'll talk. And at the same time, I'll open for Q&A, and I'll be honest to my people. If I made any mistakes in the strategies, I would openly tell them, hey, look, the strategies that we implemented last year or last quarter, it didn't work out well for us. I assume the responsibility, we failed. I failed. That's me. If I mess up anything, I screwed up anything, sorry, yeah, I'll be open and tell them, this strategy didn't work, yeah, apologize. So now let us look at something different. So I call it meet the people.
You almost have a pattern, a beginning of a pattern. So you had MUST, now you have MyChef, and you have a unique capacity to do a turnaround, basically, of organizations. Are you planning to do others after those two and package a service or something, or how do you plan to do it?
MyChef is just a temporary assignment. It's just an assignment, yeah? It's not, I'm not the CEO. It's just an assignment to transform the business, that's it. The once it's stabilized, then I'll pass it on to maybe a new CEO will be hired and he will take on from there. Okay, so that's MyChef. But what I'm interested is, apart from being the CEO of the university, I always want to be in touch with the industry. Even though I cannot take a full-time employment in the industry, that's fine. But what I've done today is I am part of the professional body. So when I am with the professional body, I am in communication with the industry players because the professional body constitutes of industry players. So from there, I have
Professional
my
body
learning.
of supply chain.
Yeah, ISCEA.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the one.
The ISCA is a professional body. It is actually constituted of all the industry players from different sectors. Yeah, you have people from Singapore, you have people from US, you have people from Canada and all. Yeah. So when we come together, we meet, we discuss, we talk about the challenges and so on. So that's where the learning happens for me. Yeah. So constantly I am with the ISCA and that supports my continuous professional development, yeah, in my area. Of course, if there's any other opportunities, as a consultant, I may engage myself in transforming organization. Actually, there's another one which is upcoming.
That's what I'm feeling.
Maybe another 2 months' time, I'll take up that assignment. But that is also one of my board's mission, yeah? Transforming another institution, yeah.
Cool. And for MUST specifically, what are the innovative things you're looking at? Like any initiative that you're going to do to change MUST in a big way? It looks more like you guys are successful, so it's more about polishing something that is already good. Do you see any avenues for experimentation and things that might not work, but you want to bet on them?
Okay. Today, we have got our programs in logistics and supply chain, and they're doing well in the industry today. Meaning to say the industry accepting, employability is good, but we cannot be in complacent. We cannot be in complacent state. So we have to keep on thinking, what is next? 2 years ago, we introduced the Triple Crown MBA coming from Cage Business School, France. We have introduced that. And today, I would say, it's already going to pass over the growth stage. It's going to come to the matured stage. So we cannot stop there. So last year, November, when I walked into Stanford University as one of the speakers for sustainability, I managed to sit down with them and sign an MOU with them, yeah, bringing in AI, Center for Safety. So that initiative will kick off soon. That's number one. And now, knowing that one of the skill set that I mentioned just now is analytical skills, right? So now, I looked around and I found that Michigan State University is offering masters in business analytics. So we are now in the midst of discussion with the Michigan State University in the US to offer their program here, their master's degree program. So I've got my pipeline.
Got it.
I've already arranged my pipeline, yeah? What is next? What is next? What is next? It's not only for the industry and for the market, but it's also for my people. I need to constantly keep my people motivated. When people are motivated, they'll drive for it, yeah? So I need to tell them what is next. So I'm looking at this here, offering here.
Very interesting projects. Maybe one last thing on the theory, because I don't think you mentioned anything specific. Supply chain management. So if we want to think like you, what framework could we use from the supply chain management theory that you have? So I can look at my marketing operations, for instance, or brioHR, or whatever thing from your perspective. Is there any framework, maybe one or two, that you want to share?
For supply chain, the SCORS model was one of the most important framework that was developed by John Paul. John Paul, he designed the SCORS model, which is called Supply Chain Operations Reference Model. He introduced that model. If you look at the measurement of the model, very, very detailed model, very tactical, I would say, going into very tactical, yeah. But look at the model from the higher level, that where they talk about make, source, and deliver, yeah. So they talk about these three aspects of it. So when you want to decide to make something, you can make it in-house or outsource. And then when you want to source, that means procurement, right? So you can look at the procurement from different perspectives. And today, what is the important one is sustainability in the procurement side of it. There is transparency and traceability. And then deliver. How do you deliver? So this theory, I think, works very well from the supply chain perspective on the SCORS model. Yeah. This was introduced by my friend, John Paul from France. But I don't think so. You can see his name there because this was given to Supply Chain Council. And eventually the Supply Chain Council was bought over by Epix.
And any other framework you want to share to the audience?
The other one is the value chain. Value chain is the most important framework. Yeah. Because supply chain came out from the value chain.
I love, you didn't tell me this because you told me the last time, but for those who listen, supply chain is not about logistics. It's not just logistics.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people still in their mindset, they have the mindset that, supply chain is equal to logistics. Please, my dear friends, no. Supply chain is the entire function in the organization. It covers HR, it covers planning, it covers marketing. Yeah, it covers IT, it covers procurement, it covers finance, everything. In finance, what is supply chain? You talk about account receivable, account payable. You measure account payable and account receivable because you're managing the flow of money. In HR, what is supply chain? What is the percentage of employees that you want it to outsource? What is the percentage of employee you want to have contract? What is the full-time employee? How much of training that you want to outsource, leave it to others? Again, it is supply chain because it comes from value chain, right? So it is the entire supply chain covers the entire function in the organization. It is not just logistics, but many people, the mindset, supply chain means equal to logistics. No, logistics is a subset of supply chain.
Perfect. With all your experience in strategic turnaround, supply chain, sustainable supply chain as well, what is the one thing you wish you had known earlier? Something that it came a bit late and you were like, oh my God, that's such a great tool. I should have had it before.
When I started off my PhD and I was doing my study, my research, it was all like supply chain. I was only talking about activities and processes in the upstream, focal company and the downstream. Yeah. But today, I wish I would have known this earlier. But today you find that sustainability is the biggest thing, is the biggest agenda. Every organization are working towards sustainability, especially if you're a multinational corporation. You have to think about sustainability. Why? Because in order for you to export or import, you need to meet the requirements, European Union requirements, US trade requirements. That is, they're talking about sustainability. You need to prove to them that your products and services are sustainably sourced, like palm oil. If you want to export palm oil, you need to have the RSPO certificate, Indonesian Roundtable Sustainable Certificate. So I wish I would have known this earlier, that sustainability is more important. Yeah. Like even the EVs, people are talking about EVs a lot. Everybody get excited about EV. But whether the EV is sustainable, yes or not, is a big question mark.
Yeah, makes sense. What is one actionable thing you would recommend people to do today to step into their own high performance? So how do you get to the next level in your outcome, your contribution to society, to your organization, to your own life? And maybe to frame it so that it's useful for our audience, for people who are working on organizations. So they're working not inside the organization, they're working on the organization, building it as a well-oiled engine that delivers the goals. What would you tell them to do, to focus on?
Okay. You can't stop reading. You can't stop reading. And don't confine your thoughts to your own given industry. There are many things that you can benefit by reading and understanding across industry. You can bring in some good practices from a industry to your industry. I think that is something that people normally don't explore. They only like to get deep dive into their own industry, but they forget about the learning that comes from cross industry. I think that's important. And for me, I personally have really expanded looking into other industry. And my very recent book that I mentioned here, this book that I just wrote a month ago, talking about banking and finance industry, something that I learned from banking and finance industry. I would recommend that people who are there in a higher level and so on, you need to constantly look into learning as to be part of your culture and learning not only from your industry, but learning across other industry as a best practice and benchmarking.
So you just spoke about the book From Risk to Resilience, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Risk to Resilience, yeah.
This book, apart from this book, how do we find your work? Are you on social media?
You can go to Google Scholar. You go to Google Scholar, you key in my name, Premkumar Rajagopal, you key in my name. You can see my publications. I'm very active in my research work. You can see even this year I published paper. Last year, every year I'm publishing paper. You can download all those papers. It's free accessible. You can get it, those paper, full paper freely available.
And you
in
write
Google Scholar.
mostly about supply chain?
Mostly about supply chain and now on sustainable supply chain.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Mati.
Pleasure.